to BioVivacious. BioVivacious is a YouTube channel dedicated to clear fundamentals of biosciences and to make the subject interesting and exciting. As we begin our discussion on regulation of glycolysis, so we should understand that all living organisms are thermodynamically are open systems. So when we mean open system, it means heat and matter can go out of the system and it can exchange with the surrounding. That is what we understand by open systems. Now all these open systems, they maintain a steady state rather than reaching an equilibrium. Reaching an equilibrium is equal to death or dying of living system. So we try to maintain a steady state. We all want to live. All living system wants to live. So therefore, an equilibrium is trying to be maintained. So therefore, I'm using a term, the flux. So flux actually, it means that the rate of flow. So the flux of intermediates, whichever is the intermediate that you have come across in metabolism so far, therefore the flow of intermediates through a metabolic pathway is constant. It has to be constant, then only we are able to maintain equilibrium. So the rate of synthesis and breakdown of each pathway intermediate maintains at a constant concentration. So let me give you a kind of an analogy. Assume that there is a river flowing in the downward direction, a huge river is flowing, okay? So as the river is flowing, so there is a possibility that we can have a dam constructed here. So therefore this is dam number 1. There is a second dam constructed here. This is dam number 2. And here there is a huge dam constructed. This is dam number 3. So therefore there are 3 dams constructed. Now in each of these dams there will be some water getting accumulated. So some water gets accumulated. Here more water is possibly likely to get accumulated, and here a lot more water can get accumulated. Okay, so we have constructed dams. And what is important for us to know is this check dam is not for electricity production. This also is only for collecting water. Whatever overflows from here will be collected. Whatever overflows from here will be collected here. Whereas this is used for production of electricity. Okay, so production of electricity depends on the need. So whenever there is a need, water will be released and electricity is produced. So therefore you know that as water is released, the water level in the dam can go down. So at that time, water is released from here and the water level keep increased. So when the level decreases here, if water is released from here. So there is no situation where this is directly allowed to flow into the main dam and it gets flooded and it is unable to handle sudden inflow of water. Now this water you consider as intermediates that is flowing into a system. So as the rate of water which is being overflown or released from this dam number 3 is controlled depending on the need. So therefore the flow of intermediates also controlled depending on the need. So therefore in any metabolic pathway, if the flux, if the rate of flow of metabolites depends on the inward flow, whether have you taken food, okay, has there been an input of intermediates from cell to cell, and whether there was a reverse reaction maintaining the concentration of intermediates. Okay, so therefore if the rate of flux through an entire pathway is determined by its rate determining steps. So therefore assume that you have a rate determining step. So in this case our rate determining step is whether electricity is produced or not. If electricity is not produced, there is no need to fill this water. So therefore this becomes the rate limiting step. Okay, so in every pathway you need to look at which is the rate limiting step. For example, in pentose phosphate pathway, you will realize that glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase catalase reaction is the rate limiting step. In glycolysis, you will realize that it is in the PFK regulated catalyzed reaction is the rate limiting step. So therefore, you need to look at a rate limiting step in every pathway. In a rate determining step, so if the product is removed before it can actually equilibrate. So therefore, there is no situation it is equilibrating, it is reaching this level of this dam. So the product, whatever the water has to be removed before it reaches an equilibrium. So which is very important. Now, therefore, in order to avoid reaching an equilibrium, what normally happens is, normally there is a huge negative delta G in these reactions. Okay, so by having a negative free energy change, so it will never reach equilibrium. That means the forward reaction will never be equal to the reverse reaction in metabolism. So that is by using a high negative free energy change. So this is, remember this. So same way as we have seen it in the case of the dam. So an analogy is given, always correlate with this one. Flux through a rate determining step of a pathway, it can be attended by several mechanisms. So the first mechanism is allosteric control. So allosteric control, we have seen it earlier also. It can be an intermediate, or it can be the product, or it can be the substrate molecule or a coenzyme, will regulate the activity of this rate determining step. It can be PFK, it can be glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase, or it can be any enzyme. So it will regulate that. The second mechanism for controlling the rate determining step is by covalent modification. See, covalent modification, remember that it is enzymatically phosphorylating or dephosphorylating or any other mechanism. So it makes a slight change, in the structure of the enzyme, and thereby the activity of the enzyme is affected. So that is another way to regulate it. The third one is what we call it substrate cycle. So substrate cycles or futile cycle, we have seen it earlier also. So in substrate cycle, what happens is it's possible to vary either forward or either reverse reactions. So these two reactions can be independently varied in substrate cycles. So therefore, by independently regulating the activity. So let me give you an example of regulating this independently. Suppose you have a reaction where A is converted to B. Okay, and B is converted, this is a forward reaction, this is a reverse reaction where B is converted back to A. So this is a reaction, assume. Now, let us assume that if the flux of conversion of A to B is 100, the flux is 100, and conversion of B to A, remember it is a different enzyme, the flux is, let us say, 90. So therefore the net flux flow of intermediate is 10. The net flux is 10. Okay, now what you do is, let us assume we are increasing the rate of the forward reaction by 10%. So this becomes 110. And we are decreasing the reverse reaction by another 10%. So 10%, this becomes 81. So now in the new net flux is 110 minus 81, that is equal to 29. You see, by increasing the activity of the forward reaction by 10% and decreasing the activity of the reverse reaction by 10%, what a change in flux is obtained. This is a very, very effective way to regulate metabolic reactions. Okay, so to regulate the flow, so this is a very effective way. And in the last point, I'm writing it here. The last way by which the flow can be regulated is genetic control. Okay, so genetic control, we have elaborately dealt with genetic control. To summarize all that, so we can regulate the concentration of the enzyme. Enzyme concentration is regulated, so that is regulated at the level of its expression. and we can regulate the activity of the enzyme. So therefore, depending on the need, metabolic need, the expression, the activity of the enzyme will be regulated. So therefore, these are the ways by which if the flux or if the rate of flow of intermediates into any pathway is regulated. So this is a general stream. So it applies to glycolysis, applies to gluconeogenesis, applies to pentose phosphate pathway, any metabolic pathway, this will be applied. With this background, let us look at glycolysis. Glycolysis is a multi-step pathway. So therefore, when you start with a molecule of glucose, it will lead to many enzymes are taking part in this, and then finally you will get a product. Now, if the flux through glycolysis is determined by the activities of each of these enzymes, so and in a particular condition, so therefore each of these enzyme has a role to play about the rate of flow of intermediates. What is the relative contribution of each of these enzymes to flux under a particular condition? What is the contribution of E1? What is the contribution of E2? This also we have to consider. Not only the rate limiting steps of glucokinase or a PFK or a PK, we need to also look at the contribution of each of these steps, each of these enzymes. Now this we need to get a quantitative information. So this quantitative information is obtained by calculating something called control strength. So control strength can be calculated by the following equation, that is change in flux of the intermediates divided by change in the enzyme activity. Change in enzyme activity. So this will give us something called a control flux. So therefore, it is in a way we are trying to determine what is the effect of inhibition on the activity of a particular enzyme. What is the effect of inhibition on the activity of a particular enzyme and its effects on the flux of the entire pathway. Now for example, let us take the analogy which we dealt yesterday. So we have a river flowing, so we have several dams, dam 1, dam 2 and dam 3. So therefore, this is considered this as one enzyme, this is second enzyme, this is the third enzyme. So what is the change in the activity of the enzyme? So therefore, suppose you introduce a canal here. Okay, you are introducing a canal and you are drawing water out of this. By drawing water out of this, so how will it affect the flow of intermediates from this dam to this dam and from this dam to the next dam? Because you have introduced a canal. So this is what we understand by quantitating the control strength. So let us look at the control strength in three different situations. Now the first situation is, let us assume that the inhibition of this particular enzyme is about 10% inhibition. Okay, with this 10% inhibition, no effect is seen in the flux. Okay, no effect is seen in the flux. So therefore, flux is zero effect. Even if you construct a canal, the water will flow. There is no effect. Therefore, control strength is equal to 0 by 10. That is equal to 0. There is no effect at all. This is the first situation. Let us look at the second situation. Suppose you introduce a 10% inhibition on the enzyme, and that will cause in the flux, let us say there is a 10% inhibition on the flow of intermediates from dam 1 to dam 2, 10% inhibition. So that is equal to 10 by 10, which is equal to 1. Okay, what does it mean? It means that flux is entirely dependent on the activity of the enzyme. That is what it means. It is entirely dependent on the activity of the enzyme. In the third situation, let us consider that there is a 10% inhibition of the enzyme if the flux is getting inhibited by 5%. Okay, so the canal will prevent the flow of water from dam 1 to dam 2 by about 5%. That means if the control strength is 5 by 10 is equal to 0.5. It means that flux control is determined by half. So if the enzyme controls half is the flux control. So if half of the flux control is determined by this particular enzyme, which means in a multi-step reaction, in a linear pathway, if the rest of the control is exerted by other enzymes of the pathway. It can be in multi-steps. So that is because in a linear pathway, if the control strength must be equal to 1. Okay, in a linear pathway. So this by definition, the control strength of a linear pathway must be total to 1. So the remaining 0.5 is contributed by other enzymes in the pathway. Now understand that regulation of flux through glycolysis is dependent on tissues. It is dependent on nutritional status, and also it is dependent on the hormonal status, state. So therefore, it depends on the tissue, it depends on the nutritional status, okay, and the hormonal level. There are many hormones taking part. So therefore, the flux is controlled by these three factors, especially in glycolysis. So therefore, we spoke about three enzymes which are the rate limiting steps, which has got a huge negative free energy change that is happening. So therefore, these three enzymes that have great control strength are the hexokinase enzyme or the PFK and the pyruvate kinase enzyme. Okay, so these are the enzymes which will, or the first step. These are the three enzymes or three steps that will have regulation or have control strength on the pathway. That will total to a control strength of 1. Now this, yesterday we have, the other day we have seen that there are different ways. One is allosteric, the another one is covalent modification, or it can be substrate cycling, and another one can be genetic control. But in the case of glycolysis, the two main areas which we are going to focus, one is allosteric control, other one is covalent modification. These are the two things. And then we will be looking at a few other aspects also along with these two major regulatory mechanisms. We will be paying attention to those as well. An important aspect that we need to pay attention when we are looking at the three enzymes is that regulatory enzymes catalyze non-equilibrium reactions. Okay, so these three enzymes catalyze non-equilibrium reactions. So we have seen that earlier, that if the product is not allowed to equilibrate with the intermediate or the substrate, it is being removed faster. So therefore there will be a huge negative free energy change also happening. So the regulatory enzymes are not active enough to equilibrate. Okay, so the product will be removed. Now, in order to determine whether a reaction is in equilibrium or in no equilibrium, this can be easily calculated by the law of mass action. So therefore, in the law of mass action, if we say that, A plus B is converted to C plus D, then we know that the law of mass action, we write KEQ is equal to concentration of C into concentration of D product divided by concentration of A into concentration of B. So this is how we calculate the law of mass action. So therefore, if the law of mass action is equal to KEQ, then the enzyme catalyzes the reaction near equilibrium and it is not regulated. And if it is not equal to KEQ, then the reaction is regulated. If it is not equal to KEQ, the reaction is regulated. So this is what will happen in the case of the three enzymes that we are going to take up.